Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Greetings, dear friends, and welcome to this Empty Cloud Monastery live stream on Wednesday evening here in New Jersey, and whatever morning, afternoon, or evening it may be for you. Today, the theme that I chose is things that can be clung to. Upadana is the Pali word for clinging, and upadaniya is the Pali word for to be clung to, or something that can be clung to. There's a pun in the word upadana. The primary meaning of clinging or grasping is from the root ada, which means taking. So like when you give dana, it's that same root dana. If you promise not to take something that's not given, promise not to take something not given, that's adina adana. So not taking what is not given. It's grasping, taking possession, taking ownership. So that's one of the meanings of upadana. And the other meaning of it is the fuel. So if you want to make a fire and you've got to put some firewood or some grass, paper, trash, or any type of flammable thing onto the fire, those things are called the fuel for the fire. In that case, it's more like the nourishing or the support for the fire. And in fact, because of that pun meaning, there's a different Buddhist word for the nutriments or nourishing of existence called ahara, and a different set of teachings about the basic processes that support the continuation of life, and also which support the process of a being which is trying to be born. And those things are called the nutriments of existence, starting with food and all the way up to consciousness. These are the nutriments of life. But then in another kind of way, the upadana, since that's the fuel, it's the nourishment for continuing to go around and around in this samsaric existence, the nourishment for dukkha. Really, that's what it is. The contemplation about upadana and upadya, the things that can be clung to, is directly supporting the development of wisdom, especially wisdom about the first noble truth. Because when the Buddha gave his description of the what is dukkha, starting with old age, sickness, and death, lamentation, sorrow, pain, grief, and despair, and then working back down to birth, and then before birth is called becoming, when a being has got the impulse to take a particular state of existence, and then the preceding step before that upadana, the grasping in this life, sets the condition for becoming in the next life. But the Buddha gave his whole description of dukkha. So birth, old age, sickness, and death, sorrow, lamentation, getting what you don't want, not getting what you want, being associated with things that you dislike or people that you dislike, and being separated from the things or people that you like. All of these things are dukkha. And then he said that in brief, the 5 clinging aggregates are the 5 grasping aggregates. This is the pancha upadana khandha, are suffering. So that's his summary of dukkha. It's very beneficial to contemplate, reflect, investigate, and try to understand that teaching. The entire teaching is given in one word. 2 words, upadana khandha dukkha. Okay, so now I'm going to give you the sutta. This teaching is about the sutta. It's very short. The Buddha said, I will teach you the 5 aggregates and the 5 grasping aggregates. So pancha khandha is just 5 aggregates by themselves. And then panchupadana khandha is the 5 grasping aggregates. Okay, so what are the 5 aggregates? Any kind of form at all. Past, future, present, internal, external, solid or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near. This is called the aggregate of form. I will emphasize the aggregates in terms of being part of the equipment about how the mind experiences everything. So in order to for the mind to experience something, they need the input from the senses, and the senses are based on the meat. So the eyeball and the liquid and the lens in the eyeball and all the little cones and rods at the back of the eyeball and the nerves that go from the eyeball through the brain, and the nerves in the brain that process that. So that's the meat part of seeing. And even if something attracted your attention and you stared, you looked to focus on something because you wanted to pay attention to it. So then the meat part of your eyeball would be changing its shape in order to focus, as opposed to just being kind of relaxed, in which case you're not really particularly focusing on anything. So that's part of it. And then the internal and external is saying that this is both mine and also every single sentient being that's got the seeing faculty in the entire universe, past, future, or present, at all the 3 times. They all possess this same process. And then there's also then the corresponding external things that are material things, or things that are able to be seen visibly, things that possess color, they possess shape, they possess a quality of reflecting light or not reflecting light, and so all those external objects, internal, external, past, present, future, in the whole world, including ones that are very easy to see, and even things that are so microscopically soft that you wouldn't see them except with the use of a microscope or something like that. So all of these are part of the aggregative form. So far, he's not saying anything about dukkha, is he? So the same thing, any kind of feeling. Feeling is the first tone of the impression when the body is responding to the inputs to what is being experienced as either being pleasant, unpleasant, or in between. It's something that is like the boundary between the body and the mind, because the first instant of having an experience in the mind is through that feeling. Even if you thought a thought and the thought caused you to have a strong feeling, you would experience the feeling in your body. So the feeling is still very much on the crossroad, or including the interaction between changes in the body and what's experienced in the mind. So that's the feeling. And it's the same thing, internal, external, and so on. So it's not just the feeling that you yourself are having, but it's all the feelings that any sentient being who is capable of feeling has, is past, present, future, large, small, all of them. So it's not something that just belongs to you. It's something that's a universal process that's shared within, like, the entire sentient world. If you feel that there's some kind of interdependent linkage among the sentient beings in the world, or some kind of linkage between beings in their present moment and those at other times, it's all part of feeling. It's not only your feeling right now, but all of it at a much bigger scale than any kind of perception at all. So perception, that's a sanya, that's the aspect of the knowing faculty where the mind has obtained some kind of inputs from the senses, which is never the entire story. The mind is only able to discern a very small, the data that comes in is a very small percentage of the total reality. But with that, the mind fills in the blanks and identifies it as something. So then the mind, this is the first point where the mind is forming a concept of what the object is based on some little bit of data that's come through. So that's the perception. Then the next one is, what Bhante Sujatra translate as choices. That's a pretty good translation. This is the sankhara. It also has a secondary meaning of the what is formed, anything at all that's formed. But in this case, the mind forms a picture of reality. So it's not just that an object has been perceived or recognized as an object with a perception, but the mind has fabricated an entire worldview. And that worldview includes a concept of subjectivity, that the self is the subject which is perceiving the object. So here's where we can see that the self fabrication of the self starts to come into play. And then the other aspect of choice is that it's got that decisive aspect of that because the body is doing what the body is doing, because the feeling is what the feeling is, because the perception is what the perception is, there can be a kind of an escalation or an arousing of energy that reaches a decisive moment where an individual chooses to do something. And this is really the natural operation of this whole five aggregates operating together, is to energize and organize an individual in order for them to do what they have to do in order to survive, in order to live. So that's the naturalistic reason why people have got this kind of equipment. And then the last of the areas is called consciousness, which is the knowing faculty, which is the capacity to have a self-awareness. So if I didn't have like the human level of a fully developed consciousness, I possibly could be some kind of a bug, and I see some kind of a color, and because of the way that I'm programmed, I perceive that color as food, and I go make a decision and go towards that colored thing because I got a perception that it's food. But that bug might not really have like the self-awareness that is saying like, this is my body, or the food is delicious to me, the food is good for me, I like the food, I don't like the food, oh, I'm so sorry, it looked like food, but it turned out to be something else. So that whole part of consciousness in the human being is so highly developed, so that the human consciousness is both aware of all the parts of the process that I can be aware. It's my body, my eyeballs, my ears. I can, when I hear a sound, I can feel in a way the vibration of the sound in the body, and I can recognize it as just a vibration, or I can recognize it as a sound. I can recognize it as a particular kind of a thing which is making a sound, and I can be able to cognize the entire process all along. So that's like the fully developed consciousness. In particular, consciousness has two qualities. One is that it supports being able to remember concepts, and consciousness is able to support continuity in time and space. So it's because of consciousness that if you looked at a baby picture, I got a baby picture of myself recently. I should have brought it out now to show you, because I put it on my altar. It's my on the day of my first communion, sitting at home with my grandmother and grandfather wearing the white communion dress. And so when I look at that, I can say, oh, that was me. And for some way, the consciousness is able to draw the connection between that child a long time ago and the person right here. Consciousness, okay? So these are the 5 aggregates. Okay, so far, I don't see the dukkha in these 5 aggregates. We don't, well, when we talked about how the aggregates are starting to fabricate a self, okay, we can get a hint. And when we see how the feeling is triggering choices and making us perverting the feeling and perception together, activating a desire to do something, which is the base for the choice. So you can see, okay, so maybe we see the dukkha is happening. But then here's the next question. What are the 5 grasping aggregates? This is the with the upadana added. So it's the same thing that we just said before, any kind of form at all, past, future, present, internal, external, corresponding, and so on, which is accompanied by defilements and fuels grasping. So the defilement is called the asava. Those are the deepest formations that keep us tied down to samsara. And one of the descriptions of enlightenment is that last thing before knowing that an arhat has come to their last life, that there's no more coming to birth. Just a moment before that, they experience and know definitely that the asavas, or these defilements, are uprooted, destroyed, cut down, never to come back again. That's the asava of sensual craving, the asava of becoming, and the asava of ignorance. So those 3 things are, when they're present, as long as the asavas are present, that's until one is a fully enlightened arhat. Then these aggregates can be accompanied by those asavas, those defilements. And in that case, they're a clinging aggregate. And then something that fuels grasping, this is Bhikkhu Sujato's translation, which is trying to capture the double meaning of upadana. Bhikkhu Bodhi translate this upadaniyam as something that can be grasped or something that can be clung to. And the Madhu Sujato gets the double meaning, something that is fueling the grasping, that's feeding the grasping. Same for feeling, perception, choices, and so on. So we see elsewhere, you'll see this in a few minutes, it's not just the five aggregates, it's the senses, the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and so on. And all of the objects, all the visible objects, the smells, the taste, and so on, everything can be a fuel which triggers the reaction of grasping. So the I struggled a little bit when I was seeing how Bhante Sujata translated it, because it almost seemed like it was giving like agency, that like so this glass of water fuels grasping, because you see I just grasped the glass of water with my hand, but the glass of water didn't actually do anything. It was just innocently sitting there doing nothing at all, and it was me who picked up the glass of water. So I grasped the water, but it is, I think, a really powerful thing to contemplate, that actually when the mind is corrupted by these asavas, by these defilements, there's no limit to the things that I can cause to become a fuel or a trigger or a flashpoint that causes my craving to flare up. So a person who's super paranoid could see, a shadow, and it causes their fear to rise up. Or somebody says hello, and it causes their fear to rise up. Or they open a book and see a certain number in a book, and it causes their fear to rise up. So that's an extreme example, but actually it's like everything in this world, everything that we experience can be made by our mind into the fuel for grasping, into the nourishment that keeps us on this merry-go-round of samsara. Wow, that sounds pretty heavy. Let's see if I can find something else to cheer us up. So, okay, this starts a little heavy. Why should we contemplate? This is the Silavanta Sutta. Why should one contemplate the clinging aggregates or the craving aggregates as impermanent, suffering, diseased, a boil, a dart, as misery, as an affliction, as alien, as falling apart, as empty, as not self? In this sutta, for one who has not yet got stream entry, they do this contemplation to realize stream entry. For one who's got stream entry, they do this contemplation to become a once returner. For one who's a once returner, they do this stream entry to become a non-returner. So for all of the stages of awakening, this contemplation is beneficial. But then, what about for a fully enlightened arahant? Well, they would continue doing this very same contemplation about the clinging aggregates. And it says, for the arahant, these things, when developed and cultivated, lead to blissful meditation in this life, and also to mindfulness and situational awareness, or mindfulness and clear comprehension. So the fully enlightened arahant still knows about dukkha and is fully able to see dukkha, to understand dukkha, to know that there is dukkha in the world, to know how dukkha operates. But nevertheless, the dukkha does not touch the arahant's capacity for a blissful meditation in this life. In fact, we see elsewhere, all of the practices along the gradual training are mentioned as things that for the arahant are the occasions for blissful meditation in this life. Let's try another one. Here's the sutta about what are the things that fuel grasping, upadania, or what are the things that can be grasped? Okay, I'll teach you the things that fuel grasping. What are they, and what is the grasping? Okay, there are sights known by the eye, which are likable, desirable, agreeable, pleasant, sensual, and arousing. These are the things that fuel the grasping. Are these the things that can be grasped? But then the desire and greed for them is the grasping. So those likable things are able to be grasped, but they don't have a quality as being skillful or unskillful. A beautiful scene or a beautiful object or a beautiful person is not inherently unskillful, either skillful or unskillful. It's just a sight. But it is the chanda raga, the desire and greed for them. And this is another way of pointing at the same thing. And this is before I pointed to consciousness affected by the aggregates and affected by the defilements, by asavas. And so the chanda raga is almost the same concept as the asava. So same thing with sound, smells, taste, touch, and so on. These are the things that fuel the grasping. So everything is something that can fuel the grasping. The desire and greed for them is the grasping. Mm. So Therefore, I mentioned in one of the live teachings that we had a little while ago that this is a trick that I find helpful in distinguishing the objects that are free from grasping and the objects that are affected by grasping. And that is to become very sensitized to when any kind of afflictive emotional response comes up. And it doesn't have to be something as gross as feeling upset or feeling angry or feeling resentment or something like that. It could be something very subtle, like if someone is feeling stressed or pained in any kind of a way, whether it be mental or physical, and then something changes and the pain goes away, and you experience that pleasant sensation of not being in pain. Let's suppose you have like your body is painful, like your back is painful, or your knees are painful, your shoulders are painful, you have a headache, something like that. And then it comes to be the time to lie down and take rest. And then just lying down in a soft, comfortable bed, then you could experience that the pain goes away, or some of the pain goes away. Or even that the mind is anticipating that in just a few minutes you're going to be asleep and the pain will go away. And so that's a shift. And with that shift, it's possible for a craving for pleasure to come up. Just like the pendulum is swinging between pain and pleasure, and when the pain subsides, just because of impermanence, it can't go on forever, and then you get a moment of neutrality, which is much more pleasant than pain, and then feeling that that relief, such a relief. It's possible that the desire for pleasure could come along, and then someone might think, oh, I should get some ice cream, or I should have a drink, or I should look at a cat video, or I should have a daydream, or I should do something pleasurable because the craving came up. It's very subtle when it comes up, but so when you train yourself to be able to really be able to watch and have like a detailed yes, analytical awareness of all the typical moods and emotions that you experience through the day. And then if you know which ones are going in the direction of affliction, or which ones are like unskillful, which is mostly like greed and aversion, then just at that moment, the khanda, which has been touched by the defilement, is present, and it gives you a chance to look back. Like quickly, you can look up. So, say a little bit of like greed comes along, and then I might say, okay, what's happening in the body right now? How is this manifesting in the body? can I feel that, I'm sorry, I don't even remember the vocabulary anymore, but when the body goes into a relaxed state of mind and the body itself is relaxing, calming, opening up. I like how you feel after a meal when you're digesting the food. And so you could notice that in the body, or else you could say, oh, what's the perception there? And you have the perception, oh, ice cream would be nice, or some kind of a thought like that came up, and when you recognize the emotion, and then you learn how to break down, analyze the emotion in terms of form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. That's a good way of being able to monitor and to know how this is arising in you. And it can happen throughout the day when you're much more activated because you're being bombarded with so much different kind of stimulation involved with social interactions with people who are using their emotions to communicate things to you, and they're also using their emotions to try to manipulate your emotions. And you may or may not be receptive to being manipulated in that way. And then there's so many other volitions that have to be created all throughout the day. So you're really being bombarded with these things. But even on the meditation cushion, it can be really powerful to say, to do this analytical process to see something has shifted, like the mood. You could say in meditation is probably the chitta, or the state of mind that you're analyzing, and you're trying to see, is the state of mind stay the same or is it different? And one that's really good is like if the mind is able to connect on the theme of meditation that you're trying to practice a particular time. Let's say if you're scanning the sensations in the body, or if you're following the breath, or bringing up the thought of loving kindness, whatever the meditation is, you can be like aware of this. So, okay, that was started with a volition to look in that direction, and then with that volition to direct the mind in a certain direction, create the opportunity for certain kind of perceptions to arise, and for certain kind of feelings to arise. And so you can notice that on the plus side, even if you're having this ideal meditation where you are landing on the theme of meditation and able to sustain that for some time. But then also, whenever you waver in being connected to your meditation theme, that's you chose with your intention, you chose to let go of the meditation object and to pay attention to something else. Why did you do that? Where is that coming from? Is it because some pain arose in the body, causing the body to be unstabilized, and then the mind starts fabricating some thoughts, possibly as a way to not be willing to sit with the bodily discomfort, but just wanting to run away from it. You can see it right in the meditation, right at the moment. Or you might see that perhaps there's a sound during the meditation, and the sound reminds you of something. So you might hear a bird chirping or a dog barking, and that could remind you of something. And because it reminds you of something, then some kind of memory comes along, and the memory is either pleasant or unpleasant, and then some emotion comes along, and then the mind can start concocting a story to go along with it. So this kind of analysis can be done very much inside of meditation, as well as throughout the day. Once you are able to discern the operation of the 5 aggregates, then your experience with the 6 senses and the corresponding objects, actually each moment of having like a visual contact with a visible object, all the 5 khandhas are involved right there at that moment. So working with the 6 senses, working with the 5 khandhas, same thing. Eventually you come to be dispassionate or disillusioned with this operation of the aggregates. You kind of get like tired of them. You've been there, done that. You've seen it 100 times before. You've seen how anger arises. You've seen how greed arises. You've seen how the mind goes off in a bender. You've seen your typical reactions 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. And if you've seen them very clearly, then you can see them coming a mile away. And if you develop this disenchantment, then you don't need to pick up the bait and get caught up in a lot of fabrications about it. You can just see, oh, this is how the 5 khandhas are doing this, and you've got the beginning of some kind of detachment. And so at one level, the wisdom person in you is able to see with detachment the operation of the 5 khandhas. You don't have to identify with it. You don't have to make it personal. You don't have to get trapped in it. And you can experience a certain measure of freedom in respect to these processes. And that freedom and that detachment is a kind of a foreshadowing of the reason why we're practicing for Nibbana, because we're practicing for complete freedom and complete detachment from these processes. So I'll stop talking now and see if there's any questions. Hello, Gregory, Elaine, Nancy, Bhumika, Sud, Anthony, Ronald, Chintana, Yankee Apple, Manny, Norma, and Manuel and Ryan, and for everybody else who may be listening now or in the future. Sid asks, for those who haven't really seen this nor completely understood it, what can they do to develop confidence in this teaching? One thing that I think is really useful for developing confidence is to find a friend who has been able to see this. who is able to understand it. One can, through a discussion, conversation with persons who have understanding, pick it up much more easily and readily than only by reading about it in the suttas or reading books about it. Another way of developing confidence in this teaching is really taking it at a very simplistic, simple, basic, ordinary, common sense aspect, and see how it is so sensible in common sense. So you know that what's a paradigm of something is if you see a large venomous snake, okay, and if you recognize it as such, what would happen to your body? And can you see that your attention would be sharply focused on this dangerous snake, which could hurt you if you're not careful? And can you see that you get a strong feeling of fear, being startled when you saw that snake? And you can see how the changes of your body becoming like tensed up and really looking at the snake and having that scary feeling, having the adrenaline pumping through the body, having that perception of the snake, and then that is all piles up together to make you create the intention that you're going to, like, careful, back away from that snake and get yourself to safety. And then you can see how actually the creation of the self, this is a little bit maybe less intuitive, but by logic, all of that whole process was because you want to protect yourself. You want yourself to not to be harmed, not to be hurt, not to be injured. And this is what we do all of our whole life long, is we try to protect ourselves from being injured. But actually, if we reflect about it, that enterprise will fail in the end, because the body will fall apart and the life will come to an end. We will be disappointed. There will be dangers that we're not able to avoid. And at that point, when we realize what can't be avoided, then we see that if we continuously reacted with that frightened, reactive, emotional, fearful excitation, that would be fruitless, and it would be just making us sick if we were continuously reacting in fear about things that actually are unavoidable and need to be just accepted. And so then, we begin to learn how to become desensitized to fear, and how to be more equanimous towards certain risks that are unavoidable. And this is ordinary life experience. But then you can extend these ideas by thinking about the teachings of the Buddha, that going around and around from rebirth to rebirth is so tiresome, such a burden, it's such dukkha. And how would it be possible to stop that process? So that's the thinking or reflecting process. Many asks, we use these same senses when we do our meditation. Yes, touch of the breath during meditation, body sensations in vipassana. How do we progress by not? No, I'm not saying don't use the senses. I just said the senses are not the problem. It's the clinging, which is the problem. So if you are able to experience the senses and the Chandaraga, the craving and desire is not activated by that, but it's just the senses in themselves, then that's the approach you're taking in meditation. Or if you say you're experiencing the senses in meditation and the central desire, the aversion of the other defilements of the mind or the hindrances of the mind are absent, and you're just able to observe them in a very neutral way. The senses are just the senses, and when you observe them in that way, they don't necessarily cause this cascading of triggering, of one thing triggering another thing and escalating into forming of decisions and proliferations. Instead, one is able to stop at any time, or even if you're in a meditation and during a meditation, say if you're focusing on touch of breath or on the body sensations, but then you feel the body sensation of heartache because of a sorrowful feeling, and then that like begins to trigger something in you. Then at any moment, as soon as you see it, you can stop the proliferating and the cascading escalation of reactions, and instead just let it be what it is. And so, in that example I gave, if you felt a heartache, you could say, okay, it's unpleasant, and just notice it, just leave it be. So when you are investigating the aggregates, it naturally leads you to really to investigate and know what's happening with the senses, and to look really, really closely to see what's going on with the senses. If the senses are not triggering into reactions, then you can look closely at the senses as just in themselves. The context is just in itself and not leading on to any other kind of thought or proliferation. Or if it happens that during a meditation, because of the hindrances or some distraction creeping in, if something does get triggered, you can examine that very quickly and see what's happening with that, and use your senses to see how does it feel when that reaction came in, including not only the 5 physical senses, but also including the mind sense, and be very aware of how when a thought touches the mind, what's that like? Yeah. Ryan says, Jiraiya, the clinging we do is the central desire, wanting what one doesn't have, and not wanting what one does have, correct? in the description of dukkha, they mention about this wanting what we don't have. And then it also mentions being in contact with what we dislike, or being separated from what we do like. So either one of those two descriptions will describe aspects of clinging. So if you're separated from something that you like and you feel the pain of that, the grasping is you want to get it back. If you are in contact with something that you dislike, the grasping is actually the wanting to push it away is a type of grasping. Wanting what we don't have is actually described in the sutta not only in terms of materialistic possessions, but also having the desire to be free from suffering and not being able to have it just by wanting it, which is another kind of grasping. So grasping after a spiritual attainment. So wanting to have stream entry, but we don't have it, is not a central desire, but it is part of grasping. So there can be this clinging can happen to all kinds of materialistic things, and also it is possible to apply that clinging or that grasping mind to our spiritual quest, which is the wrong direction. It really spoils it. So you've got to learn to do the work of this gradual training without being greedy for the results. Mena says most of the time it is thoughts that trigger reactions. That is true, that thoughts are very powerful in triggering reactions. It's also true that there can be a feeling or a sensation which is not yet fully cognized, something that's either pleasant or not pleasant. And the mind can, almost like at the very time that the reaction is starting to spin up, part of the spinning up of the reaction is that the mind fabricates a story to explain the feeling. My breakthrough experience with that, which was now 25 years ago, I was on a long retreat, and it was a 3-month retreat, and just before I started the retreat, I had gotten a change of prescription for a medication. And so then while I was in the retreat, I was experiencing heart palpitations that subsequently it turned out it was because of the medicine. So approximately once an hour through this long silent retreat, the heart would start to go like really fast. And what I noticed was I would be sitting in meditation and I would have this thought, I'm a failure in meditation. I'm never going to be successful with this. And then about 2 seconds later, I would feel the heartbeats. And I'm quite positive because that thought was like really coming out of left field. But I think what happened was the heart palpitation started. I did not yet cognize the perception of it as heart palpitations, but the mind fabricated an unpleasant thought to explain the unpleasant feeling. And it was only like 2 seconds later that I got the perception that actually that was coming. So they were kind of like, it's quite mixed up. But thoughts are in a way much more easy to see than feelings. And so by the time the mind is fabricating thoughts, you're on the train of reactivity is already starting to pull out of the station. And it's at any point, as soon as you can see it, then see it like really clearly, and then try to just acknowledge and disengage from the reactivity. So thoughts are thoughts and concepts are much more powerful than simple sensations. What must we do to go from intellect to actually seeing this truth? Well, I'll tell you what I did. First, I suffered a lot. And I experienced the pain of being in reactive states that seem to go on sometimes for many hours or even days at a time, of being in a reactive state that I would be, even if I was temporarily calmed down, the reactivity could quickly flare up, very easily flare up again and again. And so then I did at a very, like not at a meditation level, but at a gross level, I analyzed that reactivity in terms of the 5 khandhas, and I tried to intentionally like challenge or change those 5 khandhas, but I couldn't change them all at once, but I tried to change them one by one. So like if there were like certain perceptions that were causing me to be reactive, I would think, is this really true? And if it's not 100% true, instead of focusing on the part of the story that was triggering for me, I would focus my attention on a different part of the story that was not triggering for me. When the body was reactive, I would intentionally seek, like through stretching or yoga or taking a warm shower or something like that, trying to shift the energy in the body intentionally to try by shifting the body to enable the mind to get out of the rut and to get onto something else. And then when I saw how the intentions, I developed a practice that I called a practice of honesty to inquire what my unskillful emotions really wanted me to do. And I could see how the unskillful emotions wanted me to do something really unskillful. And so then just the seeing of it was like so shocking. And so then I would intentionally, on purpose, do something opposite. So if I wanted to ruin my enemy, and like I saw it with my emotions, like they were like just a horrible, so sick like that. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to do them a favor. And doing them a favor was like opposite to where I was at emotionally, but it was an intention. So I substituted a good intention for a bad intention. And I found that I don't have to be a victim of those emotionally sparked intentions. And I just kept doing that practice. And then later I got a tip about watching in terms of impermanence and non-self, so that one could see that, like if I felt like, I'll say that so and so always does that to me, but if there's no self, whatever they're trying to do doesn't have a target. It just goes through, and it doesn't land. And so I did a lot of contemplations like that. I did this. I spent 5 years investigating the 5 khandhas in terms of overcoming afflictive emotions. And at the end of that time, I actually began to have experiences where I could experience directly with brilliant clarity that some affliction would be like present at one moment, and then at another moment it would disappear. And it was such a miracle that aversion disappeared. It really disappeared. I could experience with my entire gut, my entire body, my mind. Not intellectually, I directly experienced the disappearance of aversion, and instead my mind was so completely flooded with gratitude and appreciation, just because of that, of having the chance to experience that miracle of being able to be present of mind at the second when the aversion stopped and became something else. Some time after that, somebody else noticed this in me, and then I began to observe it. I began to see how things that used to be afflictions for me that would persist, that it would like go on for hours, and I wouldn't know how to shake out of it. That I was noticing like something would happen that I don't like, and I would feel it for like 2 seconds, and then it's finished. Or I would be irritable. I would be crabby for a minute, and then it would be gone. And then the people around me got to know that they didn't have to be afraid of my moods, because my bad moods came to be so quick and so short. And so this is not intellectual. It's a direct experience. But I got that experience, in my case, the way I got it was by actually taking the idea of what these 5 aggregates are, and what it means to be grasping and clinging onto these 5 aggregates, and really doing my own analysis, how that was operating in my life, and how it could be shifted from the unskillful to the skillful. So I know it's possible. Continuing from Manny, I got these thoughts that my accountant won't finish my taxes on time. Yes, right. And how was that? How were you holding that in your body? but he did finish on time. I noticed when I did more meditation, I was seeing a more positive outcome. Yes, it is certainly probably when we experience these afflictions, when we experience these unskillful states, we also communicate with these unskillful states. And in that way, we might bring about unpleasant situations just by the way we communicate. And there's another aspect about it, which is it comes back to the sankhara as not only being the volitional intentions that we have, but also like the entire worldview. So if you have a worldview where people are unreliable, where people are immoral, it's possible that you might choose to put yourself into situations where you're going to be around people who are unreliable and immoral. And if you choose, if you expect goodness, if you expect that your good deeds will have good results, happy results, you might choose those kind of situations. This sort of comes down to, it's like we think that we're like kind of locked into a certain culture, but we've chosen what culture we're into. Even more than 30 years ago, like getting back to 40 years ago, I was in a time in my life I was using alcohol, and my friends too. And I noticed that, especially my friends, it's like every activity we had always had an occasion for drinking. It's like if you'd go to the races, or you'd go to the opera, or you'd go to a party, or you'd go to play tennis, or you'd go to have a picnic at the beach, or go to have dinner. Every single recreational, enjoyable thing that you would choose to do, somehow or other, liquor was always there. And I didn't know at the time that there was a complete other world that was available in which people were having all kinds of pleasant activities that did not include alcohol. And so only like when I stopped drinking, then I was able to discover that other world. It was a parallel universe. And so by our unskillful state of mind, we might choose to occupy a parallel universe that corresponds to that. And it's possible to get out of that and have better outcomes. So yes, thank you. These are all the questions for tonight. So I thank you all for your patient listening. And we can close by saying sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, 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 anumodami.